Hello, my name is Andrew Fletcher, and I've prepared this short introduction to mindfulness workshop video for my coworkers at the Breakthrough. I also wanted to release it on my YouTube channel in case anyone finds it helpful there. Now, I wanted to make a video for this workshop for two reasons. The first reason is I didn't want to leave anything out. If I had improvised, it's quite possible I could have left out something important, and seeing as this is really important information, potentially, I didn't want to leave anything out. The second reason, and perhaps the more important reason, is that I want you to be able to revisit this video. So if months or years from now you need a refresher on the basics, what is mindfulness, why do we practice it, I offer you this video to perhaps give you some insights there. Now I want to just give a very basic, brief, very simple overview of what mindfulness is. Maybe that'll dispel some common misconceptions that you may or may not have about it. And so in the coming moments, I will tell you first what mindfulness is and why to practice it, or why people would benefit from practicing it. Then I'll give you a few different examples of things you can do in your daily life to become more mindful and to approach things more mindfully. And then towards the end of the video, I'll guide you through a very short, simple exercise to just re-engage with the present moment. So to begin, what is mindfulness and why do we practice it? So I'll start with an analogy, and it's perhaps a familiar one to many of us. Imagine you're at a friend's house one evening and you begin to head home. You finish hanging out, you get in your car, and you're driving home. And let's say you drive maybe an hour. And you don't realize until you get home that you don't remember driving home. You were driving the whole way. In an existential sense, you performed the action and you were there and you lived it, but you don't recall it at all. And the reason for this is you were just on autopilot the whole time. It wasn't there was no difficulty in the drive, and your brain sort of just tuned it out. And so this is a really important example because it shows us that we cannot take for granted our engagement in our own experiences. The simple fact that we're here and we're now does not mean that our minds will be here with us, experiencing this to its fullest. And so mindfulness, broadly speaking, is just the practice of coming back and appreciating what's going on right now and accepting it. Now, if we live in that disengaged state for long periods of time, it can cause very bad effects on our mental health. Imagine living 40 years in a disengaged state, and suddenly you wake up one day and you wonder where your life has gone. That's actually quite tragic, in my opinion, because all along the way you lived it and you made all the decisions, but if you weren't engaged, you deprived yourself of all the meaning of all the experiences along the way. So that's what we hope to avoid. And so to avoid that, what we do is we make simple, small habits to just re-engage as often as possible. Now, these habits generally work better the more often we do them, seeing as they are habits. So, for example, meditation is very commonly a daily practice. And so all we do in meditation is we reconnect with the present moment. And when you make this a habit every single day, then every day you're reminding yourself to reconnect to the present moment, and all of a sudden you start just doing it spontaneously as you go about your day. Not just while you're meditating, but at 2 p.m. instead of 3, you just take a second and take a step back and just appreciate what's going on right here, right now. So that's a habit, but in itself that's not necessarily mindfulness. This is a habit of mindfulness, but it is not the essence of mindfulness. So the essence of mindfulness is just asking that question: what is going on right here, right now? And it's accepting whatever the answer is. So, in this moment, we're seeing all these things. And I'm talking to you and you're listening to me. Excellent. But you'll notice also that there are certain thoughts in your head, perhaps. There are certain feelings. And so we want to develop our awareness such that we can see the big picture. We can see everything that's going on in this exact moment and accept it. Perhaps you've been having a lousy day and you're really agitated, and that's disrupting your focus on this video. And that's okay. I'm not asking you to change that. In fact, I don't want you to try to change that. Instead, I want you to appreciate that and let yourself feel it. Um, and by feeling it, it sort of flows and dissipates, and you can return to a state of peace. So hopefully that makes sense. It's not about avoiding or changing our feelings. Rather, it's about deepening our experience of our feelings, deepening our experiences of our thoughts and of our stimuli in the external world. So how to implement this in your daily life? I mentioned before, obviously, meditation is an excellent practice, but meditation runs the risk of perhaps seeming esoteric and exotic and occult. So if you think that meditation is the only way to practice mindfulness, you might be a little turned off. Because meditation is maybe what monks do on a monastery on a peak over in Tibet somewhere, and we couldn't possibly do that here in America. No, of course we can, but nonetheless, it might seem like a large effort. It might seem strange and foreign. Excuse me. Instead, I think we can start with a much simpler practice. And so what I want to offer you are some different practices by which you can take a little bit of space and cultivate a little bit of space within your daily life. Now, I mentioned before, the reason we tune out when we're, for example, driving home is there's just so much stimulus and we're constantly trying to process it, and we can't. Our brain needs a little bit of stillness and silence from time to time. So, by intentionally giving ourselves moments of silence and of processing and of reduced stimulation, it allows us to more healthily engage with our thoughts and our feelings and our experiences. So meditation is an obvious example, but you can do this with anything. And so the way to do it is to, again, just ask that question, what is going on right now, and accepting whatever the answer is. On a more practical level, how can you do that in your daily life? I think one of the biggest ones is about recognizing when you're distracted and trying to remove the distractions as much as possible. The first and probably the most important thing I could suggest to anyone is to silence your phone. And so I don't mean put it on vibrate. I don't mean whatever. No sound whatsoever when you get notifications. And I'm a huge proponent of this, and there's a reason why. Whenever you're trying to work, for example, you're focused on work, and then suddenly your phone buzzes in the corner, and all of a sudden your train of thought is totally hijacked. There's nothing you can do because you heard it buzz. The second you hear that little buzzy sound, the vibrating sound, your mind just runs away. And so this leaves you very vulnerable as long as your phone is on vibrate. So I recommend turning it on silent completely. Now, of course, you still need to check your phone. I get that. You're a human being. We all have obligations and such. So perhaps try to approach it in a more mindful way. So what I like to do, for example, is to just use my phone in the last 5 minutes of every hour. So for the first 55 minutes of an hour, I will not look at my phone. I will be focused on work or reading or whatever it is I'm doing. And then in those last 5 minutes, I can use my phone and deal with whatever is come up there, or just waste time if I feel like wasting time, but only for 5 minutes. You gotta hold yourself to that, otherwise it's very dangerous. Broadly speaking, though, we can practice mindfulness by giving our one pointed attention to anything that we're doing. And so by giving one pointed attention, we don't allow all these other stimuli to come in and distract us. Instead, we're just focused on the task at hand. We're efficient, we're effective, we're productive, and we're engaged. So, for example, eating, closing your eyes and just taking a bite of the food, you gain a much better sense of the flavors of the food and the nuances of the taste. Then compare that with if you were on your phone while you're eating. That's a huge difference, because when you're on your phone, you're disengaged, you're tuned out while you're eating, whereas let's say you're really intense on tasting the food and you close your eyes and chew slowly and such. This is a very mindful act. It probably sounds so silly and simple and easy, and yet it has such a huge difference if you do it consistently and you do it intentionally. And so it's these little things like that that really make the difference in establishing a mindful life. I don't believe that anyone needs to make a huge change in their life to live it more mindfully. In fact, I think that's maybe beside the point, because somewhere there's a choice already happening. You already have constructed your life in one particular way or not. It's just you want to make that choice more conscious so that you can appreciate it and appreciate what you're doing and engage with it, and respect the decisions that you've made instead of just being blindly led around. One of my friends studied in China at a monastery, and he was introduced to a notion. There's two different versions of freedom. In the West, we think, I'm hungry. I can have anything that I want to eat. I have all this freedom of choice. And compare that to the Eastern version of freedom that was offered to him. When you feel hunger, I could choose to eat or not. So, do you control hunger, or does the hunger control you? Is really the question here. We have all these feelings and we have all these impulses and urges and such, and do we constantly react to them, or do we just feel them and say, okay, I respect that, but no, I remain in command of my attention, my actions, my person. And so for just a short minute here, I would love to open it to you guys. So I'll set up a little Google slide, and we can all write down maybe one or two things that we think we could do to live more mindfully. So if you're, I'm going to pause the video. And if you're doing this outside of the original workshop, I would encourage you to write down a few things and maybe leave them in the comments. And then when you've finished, we'll come back. So welcome back. These are all very good ideas. And so I want to encourage you to think of ways that you can implement them consistently in your daily life. Because none of these will work if you only do them once. That's kind of what makes these practices difficult. The practices themselves are quite easy, usually. Maybe eating a little more mindfully or using our phone for just 5 minutes less in a day. But we need to do them every day for them to have any real impact on how we perceive the world, how we act and make decisions. So I would encourage you to think of just small, simple things and really think about how you can commit to them and do them as often as possible. So in these last few minutes, I'm going to offer you just a very short, simple meditation practice. We'll only do maybe 1 or 2 minutes, but it's to re-engage with the present moment. And you can do this in any moment that you desire. And it's so short, it's maybe 2 minutes. You could do this once a day, perhaps. You could do this as many times a day as you want. Great, wonderful. But I would encourage you to make a conscious effort to do it, because it does make a big difference when you reconnect and make a habit of reconnecting. So for this short meditation practice, I would encourage you to just sit comfortably. I'm going to close my eyes. You can close your eyes. If you feel uncomfortable closing your eyes, you can just place them at a 45-degree angle and hold them still. And begin by just taking a few deep breaths, relaxing. And so for this practice, to just re-engage with the present moment, we will do it through the body. The word is proprioception. Proprioception means that we have spatial awareness without seeing. So I want you to feel where your hands are in this moment. I want you to sense whatever sensations are on your hands, and just be aware, just accept. The question from before was, what is going on in this moment? And accept whatever answer. Ask that question of your hands. What are your hands feeling? And gently expand the awareness now to your forearms, to your elbows, and the rest of your arms to your shoulder. And all at once, feel your entire arms. And see if you can feel any sensations here. Perhaps you feel nothing. And that too is an answer to the question, what am I feeling in this moment? What am I experiencing in this moment? Whatever the answer is, just accept. Now do the same with your legs, beginning at the feet and the toes. Feel for any sensations here. And gradually move your attention up the legs, through the calves, and the knees, all the way to the waist. So you feel the arms and the hands. You feel the legs and the feet. Now feel the chair beneath you, or whatever it is you are sitting on. Feel the ground beneath your feet. And just be conscious of these things. What do they feel like on your skin? And last, become aware of any sounds. Of course you hear my voice, but what else do you hear? Any sounds in the room? And just spend a moment holding all these in your awareness together. Don't worry about anything else. Now take another deep breath and return and open your eyes. That's all there is to it. Perhaps in this moment you feel slightly more engaged, you feel slightly more in tune with your body, and that's the goal. That's all we ever really do, because the body is our key. It's our connection to the world and our connection to our experiences. And in every moment, this practice is available to us. So once more, I encourage you to practice diligently. May you grow in this practice, and may you feel the beauty and the immediacy of experience.